Conspiracy theories take all kinds of different forms, including political, spiritual, paranormal, and in many cases, even involve celebrities. While most of these theories have been proven to either be incorrect or exaggerated, there are many others that still persist, despite the fact that there's very little proof behind them. Number 10. Two of Saturn's moons, Iapetus and Mimas, have created quite a stir in recent times among scientists and conspiracy theorists alike, though for very different reasons. After studying Mimas from afar, scientists have found certain pieces of evidence that suggest that the moon may have an ocean lying beneath its frozen surface. This revelation was made after the Cassini probe detected a strange wobble in Mimas's rotation, and it's thought that this was caused by undulations from water under the ice. This could have a serious impact on the search for life in our solar system, since water is one of the prerequisites that scientists look for when searching for planets and moons that may be able to sustain living organisms. But this isn't the only reason that Mimas is being spoken about. Conspiracy theorists have remarked on the moon's strange appearance and have suggested that it looks a lot like the Death Star that features in the Star Wars films. This has given rise to all sorts of theories, including the suggestion that it isn't a moon at all, but some kind of extraterrestrial structure that was constructed close to Saturn a very long time ago. Then there's Iapetus, another of Saturn's moons that has a similar appearance to Mimas, though it has even more conspiracy theories attached to it, mostly because it also resembles the Death Star. It's been suggested that Iapetus is also a structure created by extraterrestrials. This theory is bolstered by the fact that this moon has a visible equator that runs across its surface, and so many people believe that this is proof that it was once two hollow halves that were then attached to each other to create a sphere. Others have pointed out the fact that this moon isn't completely round as we've always thought, but that close-up images show it being almost hexagonal in shape, further convincing them that it isn't a naturally formed structure. Scientists believe that the ridge, which runs along Iapetus's equator, might be twice the height of Mount Everest, and it was formed after material from beneath the moon's surface oozed out and froze a long time ago. Others have suggested that it might have been formed thanks to a ring system that has since disappeared. But conspiracy theorists are adamant that this isn't the case, and stand by the theory that it's the result of intelligent design from another planet. Iapetus and Mimas are two very strange moons that merit many years of further study. But until this is done, there's no telling what other theories will arise, or whether they'll contain life forms that we've never seen before. Number 9. Many people around the world state that winter is their favorite season, since they enjoy seeing the snowfall and the white landscape that it creates, especially during the festive season when they can keep warm next to a fireplace or under a blanket. But not everyone enjoys the snow, since it can create dangerous driving conditions, cause people to fall on icy sidewalks, clog up their driveways with white powder, or even cause the roofs of some houses to collapse, especially after heavy snowfall. But there's another reason why some people are less than fond of snow. A conspiracy theory has come to light in recent times, where people claim that snow is not only fake, but that it could be even more dangerous than previously thought, since it's flammable. The theory originated on the popular social media site TikTok, after one user uploaded a demonstration during which they set fire to a snowball, and to everyone's amazement, it didn't melt, which many people believe should not be possible, and hence convinced them that snow is fake. Some of these conspiracy theorists believe that snow contains certain metals that have been intentionally added, and in a strange twist to the theory, they believe that Bill Gates is somehow responsible. One Facebook user uploaded their own video showing the snow blackening rather than melting as expected. They then claimed that the fumes from the snow smelled like burning plastic, furthering their belief that it was an unnatural occurrence. Scientists have attempted to explain that these scorch marks are left on snowballs, not because they're burning, but thanks to the butane that's present in most lighters, which then settles on the snow, leaving a black mark behind. As for the fact that the snow doesn't drip down when the flame is introduced, this theory has been debunked before when similar claims arose in 2014. The fact is that as the snow melts, the remaining snow absorbs any liquid that forms on the surface, and hence there's no chance for droplets to form. Another explanation for this is the process of sublimation, where a substance goes from being a solid to a gas without first turning into a liquid. When a flame is introduced to the snow, it immediately evaporates, and hence it creates the impression that it isn't melting. Scientists have also pointed out that if any of the uploaders held the flame to the snowball for a while longer, it would eventually melt as expected, and it would then result in water droplets forming, proving that it is in fact made of ordinary water. While most people struggle to understand why the US government would want to inundate certain areas with man-made snow, some conspiracy theorists believe that it's to stop the state of Texas from seceding from the Union. One theorist pointed out that Texas is the only US state that has its own electricity grid, and that this may have had something to do with the fake snow being produced. They also suggested that the jet stream above Texas had been seeded by the government, resulting in a snowstorm that caused massive blackouts that affected as many as 4 million people. But many of these conspiracy theorists have been subjected to mockery for their beliefs. In one video, a woman can be seen holding a snowball above a hairdryer, prompting many people to comment that it may not be the best idea to hold a liquid substance over an electrical appliance that's turned on, since this could easily result in electrocution. Many government agencies have pointed out that the spread of these theories is not only irresponsible, but could prove to be very dangerous, since they might create panic among members of the public who failed to do their own thorough research. Many of these videos have been removed from TikTok, since they're considered to be an example of the spread of misinformation, something that goes against the site's community guidelines, but as is often the case, this has only fueled further theories that the videos are being removed to stop the truth from coming out. Number 8. Coca-Cola and Pepsi are still considered to be the two top-selling soft drinks in the world. And while they may be very similar in appearance, most people will agree that they taste very different, since they don't contain the same ingredients. The recipes for these two drinks are closely guarded secrets that are only known to a handful of people, since it would be easy for anyone to replicate these beverages if these ingredients were ever made public. While each brand has dedicated consumers who aren't partial to the other, there are many people who enjoy both drinks equally. But in 1985, Coca-Cola decided that it wanted to rebrand its product, and hence it created an updated version with different ingredients, which was called New Coke. If this campaign was successful, it would see Coca-Cola gain a larger market share in the beverage industry, and the hope was that the new flavor would result in even more sales of the popular drink, resulting in higher profits. The main reason for this being done was because of the Pepsi Challenge, an ad campaign that was created by Coca-Cola's biggest competitor, Pepsi. During this challenge, people were asked to taste the two drinks while blindfolded, and in the resulting advertisements, most people chose Pepsi as the one that tasted better. This caused somewhat of a panic among Coca-Cola's executives, who then decided that drastic steps needed to be taken to save their brand from being overtaken. Coke was made sweeter than it was before, but the new recipe was only used for 77 days, after consumers found it to be much worse than the original. Strangely though, the company had lost millions of dollars creating the new drink. This was made up for by the fact that it received so much free publicity, and when they reverted back to the classic taste of Coke, it once again became the most popular drink in America, after New Coke was dubbed a dismal failure. While most people see this as a valiant, yet failed effort at refreshing the brand, others are more suspicious and believe that this was a planned strategy to keep Coca-Cola outselling its closest competitor. New Coke wasn't completely removed from the shelves, and it continued to be sold until 2002 under the name Coke 2. But it only held a very small portion of the market share, and the decision was eventually made to discontinue it altogether. Pepsi's executives at the time agreed that the campaign was merely a mistake on Coca-Cola's part, and that they learned a few valuable lessons as a result. One of which being that the brand should stay as it is, since it has a loyal customer base and didn't need any alterations made to it. Some people have speculated that New Coke may have been much more successful had it been marketed alongside the original drink, rather than being introduced as its replacement. But this has done little to calm the minds of conspiracy theorists. There's still the belief among many people that Coca-Cola intentionally deceived the public by introducing an inferior drink which sold well at first, but resulted in higher sales of the original after it was found to be a failure. When asked about this theory, Coca-Cola's CEO at the time responded that it couldn't be further from the truth, since they were neither that smart nor that dumb. Whatever the case may be, both brands of soft drinks are still hugely popular, and will be for a very long time to come. Number 7. There are some truly outlandish conspiracy theories out there that many people find hard to believe even exist, since they seem too absurd to even consider as true. But it seems that every year, someone posts one of these theories online and it catches on like wildfire. Some of the more ridiculous theories are that birds don't actually exist, that dinosaurs had a hand in the construction of the Egyptian pyramids, or that the world is secretly being controlled by a race of lizard people who come from another planet, and quite unbelievably, all of these theories have millions of followers. But there is one theory that has cropped up in the last few years that many people hail as the most absurd conspiracy theory that's ever been suggested: that rocks aren't actually hard until they're touched, thanks to evolution. As strange as this may seem, this theory has spread like wildfire online, likely because it's impossible to disprove, since a rock always looks like a rock, whether it's hard or not. And since it would be impossible to demonstrate rock softness, since it would harden as soon as it's touched by anyone. The theory surfaced online after geologist Gina Worthing, who it's fair to say is an expert on rocks, stated that she decided to sneak up on a rock one day, and when she grabbed it, she was surprised to find that it was much softer than expected, like a stress ball rather than a rock. Adding more fuel to this theory is the fact that she took a photo of the soft rock to prove that she was being truthful, though most level-headed people believe that the image had been photoshopped or altered in another way to give the rock the appearance that it was squishy. Others suggest that the object in the photo isn't a rock at all, but something much softer that has the same appearance as a rock. But as is usually the case with these kinds of theories, many people believe that we've been lied to all our lives. They believe that since rocks have been deceiving us for centuries, other things found in nature may likely be doing the same, as they're forced to evolve in strange ways to protect themselves, mostly from humans. Some have suggested that trees may not be made of wood, as we believe, or that other plants have evolved to deceive us in some way in order to protect themselves. But skeptics have pointed out many flaws in this conspiracy theory. Referring to Worthing's statement that she snuck up behind a rock, they ask how she knew which side of the rock was the front and which was the back. It's also been pointed out that many rocks are formed from liquid lava, and hence they sometimes cool in a shape that resembles a liquid rather than a solid rock, as is usually expected. It's also been suggested that Worthing is merely playing a prank, and that she doesn't actually believe that rocks are soft. But since she hasn't confirmed this theory, many people continue to believe that she's serious about the subject, and since she's a scientist, she must be on to something. And since the theory can't be disproven, it's unlikely to go away anytime soon. Number 6. One of the first questions we usually ask each other upon meeting someone for the first time is, "Where are you from?" as it's not only a good icebreaker, but immediately gives us a small bit of information about that person. But it is this very question that has resulted in the very strange conspiracy, which claims that the town of Bielefeld in northern Germany doesn't actually exist, despite it being present on maps and containing more than 330,000 residents. It all started in 1993, when a student named Achim Held, who was studying at Kiel University at the time, attended a party one night where he met someone who stated that they were from the town of Bielefeld. He realized that this was the first time he'd ever met anyone who lived in that town, and in response, he jokingly replied that they couldn't possibly be from Bielefeld since it doesn't exist. A few days later, he was browsing the internet and he made mention of this encounter on a message board. And that's all it took for this conspiracy to gain traction, and in no time, it had spread across the internet, with many people claiming that the town had never existed. What likely started out as a bit of fun on the internet quickly grew into a full-blown conspiracy theory, with many people adding their own opinions to it, suggesting that people who stated they'd visited the town were merely brainwashed into thinking that they had. Others asked whether anyone had ever met someone who hails from Bielefeld, whether they'd ever driven through the town, or if they knew anyone who'd ever visited the area, and the overwhelming response was that no one had. The truth is, of course, that Bielefeld does indeed exist, and it was founded in the 9th century. It currently has a total of over 33,000 residents, all of whom will readily confirm that the place is real. Luckily, the town has taken this conspiracy in good humor, And in 2019, a competition was announced, which would see anyone with definitive proof that Bielefeld doesn't exist winning a prize of $1 million. The competition rules stated that evidence could be submitted in the form of photos, videos, or text, but that the proof had to be irrefutable and had to definitively prove that Bielefeld was a fictional place. Needless to say, there was no winner by the time the competition ended in September of that year. But the theory has persisted since then, though most people see it as a lighthearted joke rather than a theory that's yet to be proven. On one occasion, Chancellor Angela Merkel remarked that she had a distinct memory of being in Bielefeld on one occasion, joking that she had, quote, the distinct impression that she'd been there, and that she hoped she could visit there again one day. This was, of course, a statement made in jest, but there are still some people who seemingly haven't cottoned on to the fact that it was all just a bit of fun, and they doubt whether the town really does exist. The theory has remained so popular that a film called The Bielefeld Conspiracy was produced in 2010, and several books have been published on the subject, suggesting that there are some people who are taking it way too seriously. Number 5. The Football or Soccer World Cup is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sporting events on the planet, as not millions but billions of people watch the leading international teams in the world face off against each other every 4 years. The event is so huge that when certain countries host the tournament, they construct brand new stadia to accommodate more fans, and in most cases, the host country benefits hugely from the influx of tourists from all around the world who flock there to see their team play on what many consider to be the grandest stage of all. But not all World Cup tournaments are as successful as they should be. Some countries see a sudden influx in crime, as criminals jump at the opportunity to take advantage of tourists who are unfamiliar with the area. Others have been found to be completely unprepared for such a large event, causing their infrastructure to suffer and ultimately leading to a less than favorable outcome as far as reputation is concerned. But there is one World Cup that has gained more controversy than most, as a conspiracy theory exists that it never took place, despite it being broadcast on television worldwide. The year in question is 1958, when the tournament was held in Sweden. It marked the first time that the Welsh national team qualified for the World Cup, and they only managed it once more since then in 2022. The conspiracy theory has its roots in a documentary that was aired in Sweden in 2002, called Conspiracy 58. The film claimed that the event never took place, but that matches were shown on television in order for FIFA and the CIA to test the influence that television can have on the general public. To back this theory up, the documentary pointed out that during some of the matches, the Los Angeles skyline could be seen jutting out from behind the stadium, and that the shadows cast by the players on the pitch were in the wrong position for that time of year in Sweden. One of the creators of the documentary, Lasse Sandlin, later stated that he received a lot of flack from members of the public, including his friends, who branded him as an idiot for producing such a ridiculous documentary, in their opinion. But many people from Wales followed the tournament closely since it was the country's first appearance, and they're adamant that it did indeed take place, adding that many people felt they could have taken home the trophy since the team played very well. They would ultimately make it to the quarterfinal, where they were beaten by the immensely talented Brazilian team, who would eventually go on to win the tournament, which was no great surprise to football fans across the globe. As far as the conspiracy theory goes, people have suggested that the boots worn by the Brazilian players were not being manufactured at the time, and hence footage and photos of their matches had been doctored. Others claim that a nation as small as Sweden could not have managed an event as large as the World Cup at the time, and that the footage was likely shot somewhere else in the US before being broadcast on television. It would later be revealed, though, that the documentary wasn't meant to be taken seriously, as it was merely a hoax. But since not everyone was privy to this information, the theory spread. And today, there are still many people who question whether the tournament ever took place. Number 4. If you're in the mood to read about a conspiracy theory, look no further than your favorite pop star, as there's sure to be at least one outlandish theory about their career, gender, or even their actual existence somewhere online. It would seem that the more successful a celebrity becomes, the more conspiracy theories exist about them, and some of these can be downright laughable, though there are some people who take them very seriously, as is evidenced by comments on sites like Reddit and Facebook. One of the more popular theories is that a celebrity is part of a secret society that runs the world, unbeknownst to the rest of us, or that they're actually part of a race of lizard people who have nefarious intentions for our planet. Another hugely popular theory is that they've been replaced by another person who bears a close resemblance to the original, or who either passed away or decided to step away from their life of fame and fortune. Celebrities that have been the subject of these theories include Paul McCartney and John Lennon from the Beatles, Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, Avril Lavigne, and Madonna, to name just a few. One of the most recent theories, though, concerns the pop star Britney Spears, who rose to fame in 1999 when she released her hugely successful first album among teenagers at the time. In 2024, people started speculating that Spears had been replaced either by a body double or an AI clone, since they believed that the videos posted to her Instagram account had been altered or manipulated in some way. Some people who adhere to this theory have pointed to certain timestamps in her videos, where they claim to be able to see when the footage switches from the real Spears to the one created via artificial intelligence. They also state that there are obvious signs that it isn't really her, referring to changes in her behavior between videos, and subtle differences in her appearance, though these bits of evidence are flimsy at best. In one video, she appears on camera with a bandage on one of her fingers, something that would probably seem very normal to you and me, but conspiracy theorists have stated that this was done to confuse and provoke her fans, though it isn't clear why this would be done. These theories fail to take into account the fact that Spears doesn't manage all of her social media content, since she's publicly stated that she has a team of people who assist her with not only this, but other aspects of her life on a daily basis. In some of her videos, she's seen as being intentionally controversial. While many of her fans see this as a part of the theory, most people know that this is merely part of her personality, and she's just having some fun with her followers. It's also been pointed out that Spears doesn't seem comfortable in some of her videos, and in some cases she seems to be in distress. They theorize that this is because an AI-generated image lacks the ability to portray genuine emotions. But it's common knowledge that the pop star has struggled with many issues during her career, and most people believe that this behavior is merely due to remnants of those struggles. When it was suggested that she used filters in some of her videos and photos, it was quickly pointed out that millions of people, including celebrities, do this every day, and that it's nothing to be alarmed about. Number 3. Harper Lee's novel, To Kill a Mockingbird, is still hailed today as one of the greatest pieces of literature ever produced in America. And since it was first published in 1960, it's remained popular among readers of all ages. Over the years, it's been translated into 40 languages, sold more than 40 million copies worldwide, and is still assigned to students as part of their schooling today. It won the Pulitzer Prize in 1961, and hence there's no doubt that it's one of history's greatest works of literary fiction. But not everyone is convinced that Lee is the real author of the book. This stems from the fact that she was a childhood friend of another well-known novelist, Truman Capote, who wrote the hugely popular In Cold Blood. What's known for certain is that one of the characters in Lee's novel is based on Capote, which may only fuel the theory that he was responsible for the work, but the theory has deeper roots than that. After To Kill a Mockingbird was released and reached the success that it did, Lee became somewhat of a recluse and wouldn't release another novel until 2015, a year before her passing. This has led to wild speculation that Lee never wrote her famous novel, since many people find it hard to believe that she would have attained such success only for it to never be followed up on. It's also known that when Lee was awarded the Pulitzer Prize, it caused a lot of jealousy on Harper's part, leading many people to believe that this was due, in part, to the novel actually being his work, which he would never gain any recognition for. Their relationship would come under further strain after To Kill a Mockingbird was made into a movie, which proved to be hugely successful, so much so that it won an Academy Award in 1963, just 3 years after the novel was published. Lee was saddened by Capote's response to her success, stating in one letter to a friend that she was his oldest friend, but she did something that he couldn't forgive, which was to write a novel that sold millions of copies. She added that Capote held on to this jealousy for more than 20 years, causing serious strain on their friendship. But Capote would see success in 1966 when he published In Cold Blood, and he's hailed by many as the creator of the true crime genre, since the novel is based on an incident that really took place. Not many people are aware of the fact that Lee had a hand in this novel as well, since she was involved in much of its research, but it's never been suggested that she was the actual author, as is the case with her most popular novel. This novel too wasn't without controversy though, as Lee found it hard to accept Capote's bending of facts to fit the story he was attempting to tell. She described him in another letter to a friend as a compulsive liar, and is said to have been deeply hurt by the fact that he didn't acknowledge her as a contributor to his most successful work. As the years went by, Capote became ever more dependent on alcohol and illegal substances, resulting in many of his friends and contemporaries ostracizing him. Lee, in the meantime, kept a low profile and refused to give interviews altogether. Those who knew Capote stated that given his personality type, he would certainly have come forward if he was the actual author of To Kill a Mockingbird, and yet there are still many people who believe Lee may not have been its true author. Number 2. As previously mentioned, both Paul McCartney and John Lennon from the Beatles have been the subject of some wild conspiracy theories, and quite surprisingly, these rumors still persist today, despite there being a lot of evidence that they simply aren't true. Probably the most famous of these is the suggestion that Paul McCartney passed away many years ago, and that he was replaced by a look-alike who then assumed his identity for good, all in a bid to keep the band as successful as they'd been up to that point. As for John Lennon, there are those who believe that he was never assassinated by Mark David Chapman in 1980, and that he actually faked his own passing, either to get out of the spotlight or to start a new life elsewhere in the world. Most people take these theories with a grain of salt, since both of these musicians have had people in their lives who know the true facts, that McCartney was never replaced by a look-alike, and that Lennon really did lose his life on that fateful day, at the hands of an obsessive fan who didn't approve of his change of lifestyle and beliefs. But in 2016, a website titled The Beatles Never Existed took these theories a step further, and as the title suggests, theorized that the band never really existed in the first place, but was actually comprised of body doubles. The theory stemmed from a series of photographs showing the band members during their youth and later on during their lives. According to the site, the changes in their appearance are far too great for them to be the same people, and hence they must have been replaced by doppelgangers at some point. As an example, a series of 3 photos of John Lennon, taken over the years, supposedly shows that his eyes are closer together than they were in the past, and that his mouth is no longer the same shape as it was before. The founder of the website has acknowledged that this may be due to some of the group's photos being altered, and that they may have undergone plastic surgery through the years, but adds that this is only further proof of the deception, since more modern photos also don't match each other. The site further claims that there wasn't 1 or 2 John Lennons, but 3 who appeared between 1963 and 1968, a span of just 5 years. It claims that Lennon's lips used to be curved, but appear straight in later photos. As for Paul McCartney, the site speculates that there may have been as many as 12 iterations of the star through the decades, and that this is also evidenced by changes to the shape of his face, ears, and nose. George Harrison is said to have different eyes and teeth in some photos, and Ringo Starr is rumored by the site to have been replaced at least once, likely due to the band's hectic touring schedule. But most people believe that the changes in the 4 men's appearances are likely due to age, something that happens to all of us as we grow older. This will not put an end to these stories, but it's likely that the Beatles will be the subject of further conspiracy theories in the future. Number 1. William Shakespeare is surely one of the most famous playwrights, if not one of the most famous people who has ever lived, since his plays are still hugely popular, including Othello, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Macbeth, and of course Romeo and Juliet, among many more. But for a very long time now, people have speculated that Shakespeare wasn't actually the one who wrote all of these unforgettable plays, and that he'd merely taken credit for the work of someone who was much more talented than he was. It's believed that the first person to question the authorship of these plays was a man named James Wilmot, who decided to write a biography of the great bard in 1781, and hence he had to undertake a lot of research to get all his facts in a row. To do this, he visited the home that Shakespeare lived in 200 years prior, as well as other houses where he may have visited. He also visited every library in Stratford, Shakespeare's hometown, But this is where he hit a dead end. None of the libraries had any record of Shakespeare reading any of their books, and in fact, he could find no evidence that he ever existed at all, at least not in that area. He found it hard to believe that anyone could produce some of the world's most astounding plays without leaving some kind of paper trail behind. So he decided that someone else must have written them, and this theory has prevailed into modern times. He suggested to a friend of his, James Cowell, that another playwright named Francis Bacon was the actual author. This theory was then revealed during a series of lectures given by Cowell in 1805, but even this is debatable, since some people think this narrative was only created during the 20th century, since the lectures were found to contain more modern language. But the theory that Bacon was responsible for the plays is still going strong, thanks to 2 books on the subject that were published by 2 different authors in 1857. Unlike most conspiracy theories, this one gained traction among well-known figures such as Orson Welles, Malcolm X, Helen Keller, and Sigmund Freud. The prevailing theory is that a well-to-do author who didn't want their name associated with the plays got wind of William Shakespeare, who was an actor at the time, though not a very talented one. They then convinced Shakespeare to have his name added to the plays, receiving a large amount of money for the convenience, a deal that someone who was struggling financially would have taken in a heartbeat. Not only would he be paid handsomely, but if the plays were successful, he would gain worldwide recognition as a playwright, despite having little to no talent in that field. While Bacon remains one of the frontrunners as the author, it's also been suggested that the plays were written by Edward de Vere, who served as the Earl of Oxford, Christopher Marlowe, who was known to Shakespeare and is rumored to have been a spy, or Queen Elizabeth, who many people feel would have had a good reason to keep her name from appearing on the plays. Others suggest that they were written by not one, but a group of authors. But if any of these theories are true, why didn't the real author or authors ever come forward to claim the recognition that they rightly deserved? Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.